Ever feel like your emotions are kind of doing a bit of parkour, like up, down, all over the place? Well, that's what we're diving into today, but amplified. Untreated bipolar disorder.
Yeah.
And to get this, it's not just the mood swings we're talking, right?
Right.
It's like a ripple effect. Body, brain, your whole life, basically.
It's true. It's true. We tend to like box in bipolar disorder as just this, mental health thing.
Right.
But the reality is it's like completely intertwined with your physical health in ways that I think would surprise some people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we go full deep dive here, let's make sure we're all on the same page, right?
Okay.
So we're talking about intense shifts in mood, energy. Doctors actually call those episodes, right?
Yeah.
And they really do run the gamut. I mean, we're talking like sky high energy on one end to,
Yeah.
I don't know, feeling like you're slogging through mud on the other.
Yeah. And the thing is, these episodes, they're not one size fits all, right?
Right.
With bipolar 1, you might have a manic episode, like so intense that someone could be hospitalized, right? Like that could last a week or even longer. Yeah. But then you've got bipolar 2, where it's less about those like extreme highs and more about noticeable but less severe, kind of upswings in mood.
Right.
But still disruptive,
Right.
of course, especially with the depressive phases that come with it.
Absolutely. See, this is what I think is so wild about this, right?
Yeah.
It can look so different from person to person.
It really does, yeah. And then on top of that, you've got cyclothymic disorder, where someone is riding those like hypomanic and depressive waves for like years.
Oh,
and imagine the cumulative impact of that.
Yeah.
So all this to say, accurate diagnosis is key here, right? It's not as simple as just checking a box.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely. A tailored approach is everything.
Yeah.
And that kind of brings us to the heart of today's deep dive, right? What happens when this goes untreated?
Yeah.
And you might be surprised to learn that untreated bipolar disorder isn't just hard on your mental health. Like, it can actually increase your risk for some serious physical health issues too. We're talking heart disease, diabetes.
Right.
It's like your body's stuck in overdrive, dealing with the constant stress of these intense mood swings.
Exactly. And you're like, your mind and your body are constantly in this intricate dance, right?
Right.
Take sleep, for example.
Oh, yeah.
Which we know is like crucial for everything, right?
For everything.
When you have bipolar disorder, sleep is often the first thing that gets disrupted.
Right.
And that throws your whole system off.
It's like your internal clock is permanently set to like snooze or something.
Yeah. And during a manic episode, someone might barely sleep at all.
Right.
Right. They're buzzing with energy, making impulsive decisions, and this can actually make their condition worse.
Wow.
It's a dangerous cycle.
So it's almost like it feeds itself.
It does, yeah.
And then, of course, you have the flip side where during a depressive episode,
Right.
they're sleeping way more than usual. They're lethargic.
Yeah. And all these extreme shifts, have this domino effect, right? Yeah. Your appetite, your energy levels, even just like your motivation to, to work out.
Right.
Or eat a salad. All of that takes a hit. Over time, this kind of like roller coaster ride increases your risk for like a whole bunch of different physical health problems.
Wow. That's a lot to process. But it really, I think, underscores how interconnected our mental and physical health truly are.
They are.
And it doesn't even stop there.
Right.
We also, in doing the research for this, we dug into how untreated bipolar can really mess with your ability to think clearly, make decisions, focus, all that good stuff.
Yeah. Think of it like this. You're trying to meet a deadline, but your mind feels like a browser with 20 tabs open.
Oh my gosh, yes.
That's the kind of cognitive chaos that we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's not just, feeling distracted. It can actually impair your memory and make it like really difficult to just make decisions.
Wow. It's like your brain is just stuck on shuffle.
Right.
And not in a good way.
Yeah.
So how does this play out like during a manic versus a depressive episode?
Well, in the midst of a manic episode, you might see racing thoughts, difficulty thinking clearly, maybe even getting caught up in beliefs that aren't really rooted in reality.
Okay.
And this can fuel impulsive actions that have like some pretty long-lasting consequences.
And then with depression, it's almost like the struggle is more about the mental slowdown, right?
Exactly.
Like even just concentrating takes like Herculean effort.
Exactly. Things that used to be so easy and second nature just feel impossible. It can be so frustrating and make you feel really alone.
And I imagine that bleeds into relationships as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Because untreated bipolar disorder, it doesn't just impact the individual. It ripples outward. Relationships are already complicated enough. Now imagine trying to navigate those complexities while riding an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
That's the reality for a lot of people living with untreated bipolar disorder.
It's incredibly tough, both for the person with bipolar and for their loved ones.
Yeah.
Just imagine trying to build trust and have a healthy relationship when moods and behaviors are so unpredictable.
Oh, gosh.
Just like trying to build a house on a fault line.
Yeah, you're going to feel those tremors for sure.
Exactly.
And our research mentioned that, like, impulsive behavior during manic episodes can be especially damaging to relationships.
Absolutely. Those actions that are taken without thinking, fueled by that mania, can really erode trust and do some lasting damage.
Yeah.
It could be anything from spending sprees to risky behavior, even just really harsh words said in the heat of the moment.
Right.
The consequences can be tough to come back from.
And then you have the flip side of that with the withdrawal and isolation that's common during depressive episodes.
Right.
Which I imagine also creates distance in its own way.
So it's like you're caught between a rock and a hard place, you know?
Definitely.
On one hand, you might be pushing people away, but on the other, you're desperate for connection.
Yeah.
It's a really tough cycle to break. And our research even mentioned that some people try to cope with all of this turmoil by self-medicating.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Even if it's not the healthiest coping mechanism.
Right. It's not uncommon at all for substance abuse to go hand in hand with untreated bipolar disorder.
Yeah.
It's like they're trying to numb the intensity of those highs and lows.
Right.
But in reality, it just makes things worse.
Adding fuel to the fire, so to speak.
Exactly. Substance abuse can really amplify the symptoms of bipolar, throwing like another wrench in the gears.
Wow.
And of course, it comes with its own set of health risks and complications.
Right. It's like trying to put out a fire with gasoline.
Right.
It's not going to end well.
Yeah.
And it really highlights how untreated bipolar disorder doesn't exist in a vacuum, does it?
It doesn't.
It often intertwines with these other mental health challenges too, like anxiety or substance use, which I imagine makes diagnosis and treatment that much more complicated.
Absolutely. This is why it's so important to address the whole person. You have to look at the bigger picture. What's going on in their life? What other challenges are they facing?
Yeah.
It's about connecting all those dots to provide really effective care.
So we're talking about a much more holistic approach to treatment rather than just focusing on those mood swings themselves.
Precisely. It's about equipping people with the tools and the support they need to navigate all aspects of this condition.
So where do we even begin to untangle this web? It feels like we've, uncovered that untreated bipolar disorder really has these implications for like every aspect of a person's life.
Yeah, it's true. The impact is far reaching, but the good news is early diagnosis and treatment can really be like game changers here. It's like, think about it like noticing a small crack in a bridge. The sooner you fix it, the stronger that foundation remains.
Right. Okay. So early intervention is key. But what does that even look like in practice? Right.
Yeah.
What are some of the like red flags that people should be keeping an eye out for, whether in themselves or someone they care about?
Well, I mean, those dramatic shifts in mood and energy that we keep discussing, those are definitely like some of the most telling signs. Drastic changes in sleep patterns as well.
Yeah.
Like one week, someone might seem like they need barely any sleep.
Right.
And the next week, they can't get out of bed.
Yeah. And I imagine those cognitive things we were talking about factor in as well.
Absolutely.
The trouble concentrating, the racing thoughts, those kind of like, I don't know, off judgments.
Absolutely. Those are definitely early warning signs. And it's important to remember that, bipolar disorder doesn't present the same way in everyone.
Right.
It can look very, very different from person to person.
Which again, kind of goes back to that tailored approach. Right?
Exactly.
Like getting an accurate diagnosis from a mental health professional.
Yes.
Is absolutely crucial.
100%. And, once someone has that diagnosis, treatment usually involves like a combination of things. Medication, therapy, and some lifestyle changes. It's about finding the right recipe to manage those mood swings and kind of get to the root of what's going on.
So it's not as simple as just throwing medication at it.
Right.
And hoping for the best. It's really about giving the individual the tools to like take charge of their own well-being.
Absolutely. It's about empowerment. Like therapy, for example, like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, can be really helpful in teaching people practical coping strategies and mechanisms for dealing with, the challenges that bipolar disorder can bring.
Okay.
And then, on top of that, you've got the lifestyle changes.
Yeah. which we hear about with everything. But
right, but for a reason.
Yeah.
Regular exercise, eating a balanced diet, prioritizing sleep. These might seem like small things.
Yeah.
But they can make a huge difference in mood regulation.
It's amazing how interconnected it all is.
It is.
It's not just treating the symptoms. It's about supporting
the whole person.
Yeah.
Exactly.
This has been an incredibly, I think, eye-opening deep dive.
It has.
We've covered so much, from the physical toll of untreated bipolar disorder, its impact on relationships, on cognitive function, and even that increased risk of substance use. It's clear that this is a really serious and complex condition.
Yes.
But it's not insurmountable. And to our listener, if any of this has resonated with you today, please know that you are not alone. There are resources available to help, and you absolutely deserve to live a life that's filled with joy, purpose, and well-being. Remember, knowledge is power, and that fourth step towards seeking help can really make all the difference.